Hello and welcome back to another painting tutorial. In this episode we are going to look at how to paint tattoos. Now tattoos are a fantastic little way to add that little bit of extra detail to your mini, especially when you're working with things like busts or large scale minis. This is a lovely miniature to do this on because we've got a lot of flesh, a lot of space to work with, and we're just going to go over some of the basic principles of tattoo design so that you don't make a mistake when you're designing a tattoo so it doesn't look out of place. So the first principle of tattoos to think of is placement. Now there are many areas of the body that a tattoo can be placed, depending on the tattoo style and so forth. They look better in some places more than others. For the front of the mini, using the picture as a reference, main areas to think of is you've got the pectorals, so you've got the two sides of the chest. You've got the ribs, that's another popular area of tattoos, and the stomach there. You could have a piece that goes down the middle, down the center, spreading out around and so forth. Tattoos can take all shapes and sizes, from little one-off pieces to full-blown Japanese-style bodysuits. So depending on your mini, depending on how far you want to take it, will depend on how big and so forth you want to place it. So looking at the back, follows the same sort of rules as the front with placement. You can go either sides of the shoulder blades. You can come down the center, have a piece that spreads right across and so forth. It could be just a little tiny lower back tattoo. The choice is yours on this one. Also, don't forget you've got the head and the neck areas, which are also ideal candidates for tattoo placement, especially on minis that might be more covered than this one. If you want to still place a tattoo that could be shown, the neck is normally exposed, so you could get the side of the head or even the top of the head and so forth as alternative areas as well. And finally, on placement, you also have the arms as well as good candidates for tattoos. Normally they go on the outer edge of the arm. They could be a banded tattoo, so it goes all the way around the arm and so forth, or a mixture of the two. You can have tattoos from the arm that spreads out, comes over onto the shoulder, onto the chest, and they can go all the way down or just be part of the arm. The second fundamental to think of is direction. Now this is the direction of the flow of the tattoo. If you're working on the front or the back, this is quite important because if you put it on wrong, it can look very, very odd indeed and very out of place. Good rule of thumb on this one is to think that it should work as if it's flowing into the middle. If it's got a face, it's looking towards the center line of the body and so forth. If it's just a generic sort of pattern or a geometric shape or so forth, it can just have a standalone place on wherever you place it. But if it's an image of a person or an animal or anything that has a face, like we said, it needs to flow so that the eyes would be looking more towards the center line of the body. If the tattoo is on the arm or on the side of the body, again, if it's got a face on it or eyes or anything like that, we're looking at the direction being towards the front center if possible. The only exception to this is if the image has a face on it and you have that face down the center line of the body to begin with. It doesn't really matter which way it's looking, whether it's looking to the left, looking to the right, because it's down the center. Normally this is often done as part of a more symmetrical shape, so you've got equal foundations on either side of the body as well to balance. If you're doing a Japanese bodysuit as part of your tattoo design, then good luck. With Japanese designs, they follow a lot of rules As to the actual composition and the setup of the tattoo, it follows things like seasons and having the right sort of flowers or the right season. It's a very, very complex process. With this, I would probably recommend having a look online and just studying Japanese bodysuits to try and get a general feel as to what elements of the tattoo should be in what tattoo, basically. So we're going to start off our back tattoo by taking our image, which I put up in the top corner of the screen, and we're going to sketch out the image by first breaking it down into its basic line structure. So taking the complex shapes that's in the tattoo and just breaking it down to a simple directional line so that we can then expand upon it later on. For the colour that I'm using, it's going to be black grey mixed with a little bit of Prussian blue and a little bit of our beige red, or whatever your base sort of skin tone is that you're using for your piece. The reason why we choose these colours is that tattoos, especially when they're older, are not just black. They do lose a little bit of coloration, and particularly with old style tattoo ink, it develops a sort of bluish tinge over time. So that's the reason for the Prussian blue. The reason why we put the skin tone in there is because the tattoo is basically under the skin. There is a layer of skin above where the ink is setting, so it will affect the color slightly. So this will just help it harmonize with the rest of the skin tones as we progress. As this is a Celtic design, there's a little bit of Celtic knotwork in there in the shape of the tail. Now, to make it simpler for yourself, don't worry about all the breaks that you see in the line work where it's representing of lines going over or under other lines. Just do it as one continuous line, because we'll work on this later so that we can get it so it's looking more like a Celtic based design. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, your likes and subscriptions do give me that little extra boost in order to keep on making more videos. For elements of tattoos where there's a bit of symmetry, what I'd recommend is just doing little dots at the end points of where you want your lines to be, so that you can check them before you do the line, just to make sure that they are symmetrical and equal. Now that our line sketch is complete, all you got to do now is just to expand the thickness of the lines, get the line weight different and thicker where it needs to be, just so that it starts to match the line weights that you see on the image. Also, there's elements of the design which can be broken down into simple geometric shapes like circles, triangles, etc. You can do so as well. Here I'm turning the head, so the end piece of the head just before where the nose or the beak is more of a circular sort of shape. So I'm going to sketch it in as a circle just to thicken it out and just to give me direction of where the shape is for when I start to tidy things up. So now we start looking at putting the line breaks in the design to make it more of that Celtic sort of feel, where we've got the different segments of the same image. For this, we're just going to do very thin lines where there is a break in the line work using beige red, or again, whatever your sort of base skin tone is that you're using on your piece. So the final step of our tattoo is to again give it that appearance that it's something that's under the skin. So for this, we're just going to take a very thin glaze of our beige red, again whatever your base color is or whatever color you've been using so far, and we're just going to glaze over the tattoo a little bit. You don't want the color to show too much. It's just going to have the most subtlest of effects, so when you're looking at it with the naked eye, you can see that there's something just doing something with that tattoo design. So our next design is going to be a bit more of a trickier one, where we're going to really try and rely on our symmetry here and do a typical classical Celtic cross with something that resembles Celtic knotwork inside of it as well. Our thought process for this one is going to be a little bit different, whereby we're going to essentially block out the entire tattoo, and then using our skin tones, we're going to start putting the details in. So we're essentially sketching out the negative space of the tattoo to get the design in. But to start off, just like we did with the dragon tattoo, we're going to break it down into simple line work. So for the cross, it is simply just drawing a cross. Then to expand upon the cross, we will then do the line works at the edges of the 4 points, so that way then that gives us the thickness that we need for the actual cross itself. The next step is I'm going to paint 4 circles to represent the 4 hole points that you see, which is in between the cross and the backing circle band. Now I'm just going to expand the line work that we've done on the cross and black it out so we've got the shape of the cross already done. Now I just expand on the line work again to get that circle that's behind the cross. So now we're going to use our flesh tones to down to the line work that's inside the cross. So on the image where you can see where it looks like white lines and so forth, think of that in tattoo terms as what they call negative space. So it's basically areas of skin that they haven't tattooed that will then result in that design. So we're going to use the flesh tone to just start the borderline inside the black lines that we've already done. So we're going to go really, really thin lines now. Alright, so we're going to really focus on getting that framework in first. So now we're going to start to imitate that Celtic knotwork. Now I say imitate because this is a very complex design and just the area that we're working in is so small that you will not get an exact replica. So what we need to do is we need to give that impression of the Celtic knotwork. So what we're going to do to start with is in each of the 4 sections of the main cross, we're going to do an elongated 8. So it's almost like a Mobius strip almost. So you've got a small bit of the 8 at the top, working our way into a big, elongated bottom part of the 8 towards the end points of the cross. Now we're going to work on the centerpiece of the cross. So from here, we're going to do like a stylized U or a V, and we're going to do that so it connects with the same sort of shape in a 90 degrees angle and so forth, all the way around the center point of the cross. Now this is where we go and make that impression of Celtic knotwork. So I'm going to start in the very corners and I'm going to do sort of swirly shapes running through the other areas of the cross points just to give that impression of that complex knotwork. And the final step, just like we did before on the dragon tattoo, is to give it a little glaze with a flesh tone. And that's it. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hope you try doing some tattoos on your miniatures in the future. Please like and subscribe, all the usual gubbins, place a comment down below, and happy painting.